Good evening. This is Jack from Charting the Market, and this is the bigger picture webinar for the evening of Wednesday, the 16th of July. My disclaimer: I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. Okay. Let's have a look at yesterday. This little spike down was when Trump mentioned that he had been asking members of the Republican House and Senate what their reaction would be if he fired Jerome Powell. So equities went down, and bonds went down, and gold went up, and actually, interestingly, crypto went up, which was a very interesting development. But anyway, shortly after that, it was declared that actually he had no intention of firing him, although he is being investigated for possible fraud, apparently. So as all enemies of the administration must be doing at the moment, I'm sure. And so that's where we are at the moment. I would note that one of the things that's in my mind here is that if he isn't fired, then Jerome Powell's term is due to end in May next year, and after that, I think the chances of having an objective and the kind of Fed chair that the market would actually like are actually pretty low. So that's an interesting subject we'll get to next year if we don't get to it sooner. But I think Trump feels that the blowback from him firing Jerome Powell would be too big for him to handle at the moment. So we'll see how that develops. Right, the week 60-minute sell signal on the ES reached the possible near miss target. Then we saw a decent rally. This is a possible head and shoulders forming here. I have to say, I'm still liking another retest the high. I don't know if we'll get one, but we will see. NQ, week 60-minute sell signals fixed, hasn't made target yet. Reached a possible head and shoulder neckline as well, but didn't quite get low enough for my liking. On RTY, we had a head and shoulders breakdown with a target at the monthly pivot. At the moment, that's back testing, but I'm thinking that may well continue down there tomorrow, although I have to say I would like to see some high retests, particularly on YM first. On YM, decent looking bull flag here, but I don't really have the same flag on the dia chart, which is where I'd really like to see it. We'll see how it goes, but I am thinking we've got some positive divergence here. We'll see how it develops. On DAX, still got a potential level bottom here. ESTX actually went significantly lower without DAX today. So we got slightly below the monthly pivot, closed back above it. But this looks a little like a bull flag, and this looks like a little level bottom. But it was interesting how far ESTX got down without DAX joining in. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Right, sorry, frog in my throat. Okay, on SPX, we reached a possible head and shoulder neckline, and I am wondering if we are forming a right shoulder. If we are, we'll see a little higher and then go lower. And the target here would, if we saw a breakdown, would be approximately in about the 6100 area. That could be doable. And that actually obviously would involve dropping, 160, 170 points from here. So it would be not inconsiderable while not huge. If we did that, then of course we'd make the RSI 14 sell signals, which have fixed on the hourly charts on SPX and the Qs, and we'd make the full target on dia. Although that one's already reached the possible near miss target. We would also fix the last sell signal that hasn't fixed yet, which is the weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing on the Qs. We've already got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed there on ES. Got RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals fixed now. The RSI 14 one fixed today. We already had RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals fixed on SPX, and we've got exactly the same on IWM. That's a lot of sell signals, basically everywhere except on dia, and on dia because of course that hasn't retested the high yet. In terms of the pattern setup here, this is a very, very nice rising wedge from the low here. Now, it could be that we're just going to be establishing a different support level if we can get back up into this trend line. But I think it's more likely that we've started a topping process here. So we shall see. The way that would normally develop is we'd have a small top here, we would break down, and then we would either retest the high or start forming a larger head and shoulders if we were going to see that build up into a larger retracement. Now, sometimes news means you don't get that kind of time, but that's the sort of thing I would normally be looking for and the sort of thing that we would normally get. And it's the sort of thing we got here. So we shall see how that goes. All right, looking at the Qs, we're obviously, well, looking at SPS first, we're obviously still somewhere above the daily middle band. Not in any imminent danger. On ES, I've got that now in the 62.17 area. We'll see. But as and when we get back to a test of that, as we were doing when we were down here, and I was noting that that was the main support here, it is still the main support. Until we see a break below it, then there's nothing really interesting happening here. We've only, since we saw a break up above it in late May, we've seen a couple of beef pokes below, and we saw one big close below it, which was then recovered very quickly. We've not seen a sustained break below it since the April low. When we do, then that could be the start of something getting interesting. Till that happens, we're still technically in an uptrend. All right, looking at the daily chart on Qs, pretty much the same. Obviously, a lot of sell signals. We don't have those sell signals on Dire because while we have made a new all-time high on Dire, we haven't actually retested that high yet. I would note that normally making a new all-time high on Dire would mean we made one on the Dow Industrials on the Inda, and we haven't actually managed that yet. Would this still be a pretty respectable double top? Yes. Would it be improved by a full retest of this high? Yes. I'm still hoping actually that we get one. The flag here was not as nice. And I don't think, I'm just going to check a trend line here, but I don't think this is a particularly great looking flag. So that undermines the one that I'm seeing on the main chart. How good is that? Not great. That undermines the one that I'm seeing on the YM chart. So nonetheless, this could be a bull flag and looks like a bull flag. I just haven't got a decent support trend line for it. All right, let's have a look at IWM. IWM, nice looking wedge. We broke slightly below the support on that at the low today. We've got, I haven't actually marked it in, we've got an open RSI 14 buy signal fixed here. No divergence on the hourly chart. We had a little RSI 5 hourly buy signal which made target. I am thinking this could be a head and shoulders forming, or we could be setting up for a retest of this high. Bigger picture, of course, we've still got this IHS which is broken up, but I've got to say, the way things are developing here in terms of tariffs, in terms of everything really, I don't think we've got much time left on this rally. I think the chances are we are topping out. We will see how that develops, but I'm not really looking for much higher. And I was thinking that if we could avoid tariffs becoming a big conversation and there was no move back to finish unfinished business there, then maybe we could see a rally that would last for longer. But we haven't seen that. So while it's still possible that we make this a new all-time high on IWM, at the moment, it's not seeming particularly likely. DAX has tested the daily middle band, or no, got pretty close to a test of the daily middle band, and got strong support there with the 50 DMA at the same stage. Again, I'll be watching for a break below that as a signal that something is actually really changing here. On Nikkei, we've been testing the daily middle band. I'm skeptical now about seeing a move up into 42.4. I'd love to see the retest. We've still got a nice looking bull flag set up here. We'll see how that develops, but I think the chances of it happening are reducing by the day. The more announcements we've got about tariffs, and we've got more information coming out saying that we've got there'll be a big pharmaceuticals tariffs by the end of the month. The tourist numbers for the US this year are a disaster, and for good reason. I mean, the fact is, there are an awful lot of places where people go on holiday where they don't get their phone history searched for ideological purity on the way in, and where they don't run any risk of ending up in a concentration camp for days before they manage to escape. That's an interesting holiday, but when you're spending a lot of money and you've only got 1 or 2 holidays in a year, a lot of people will choose to go elsewhere. I think I've been hearing news that traffic from Europe is down 50 to 70%. This is going to be a very bad year for tourism in the US, and We'll see how that develops. But again, that's not looking great for the economy. Tourism is large, exports are large. I do know that, I mean, there's obviously a boycott on American goods in Canada, and that's a pretty hard boycott, officially supported by the government and so on and so forth. A lot of the rest of the world, there's kind of a soft boycott at the moment, and there'll be soft boycotts in Japan. There's soft boycott across much of Europe, where people are just thinking, well, where they can avoid using American goods without much inconvenience themselves, they're just getting it from somewhere else, and that's just a soft protest against Trump's policies. So it is the way it is. I think that's going to have a bad impact on the US economy. I think that's likely to be right, and that's not going to be good for equities for the rest of this year. All right, let's have a look at DX. DX, this was the reaction when Trump mentioned the possibility of sacking Powell. Obviously, that was recovered fairly quickly, but obviously it was pretty sharp. The retraction came very shortly afterwards. I think he was just floating the idea to see if the reaction would still be very negative. It is. And I think that's one big problem with Powell's term ending next year. That's going to be a problem. We've got a 60-minute sell signal fix on that move down. That hasn't made target yet. It might. I'm watching support at the monthly pivot here because we've seen a nice break up, but we could be looking for a low retest. And I think the key for that really is the monthly pivot at 97.32. Break below that and convert it, then we can see the low retest, and I'd be looking for a double bottom. Here, if we hold that and continue higher, I've got a couple of IHS options I'll be looking at. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And hang on 1 second. Right, US dollar. No current divergence here, but it wouldn't be hard at this stage to set up some negative divergence on the daily chart. Obviously, the buy signal at the low made target like a champ. I am watching with particular interest this possible IHS neckline in the 99.5 area. Ideally, if we're forming an IHS, we would come up to there, we would see a pullback for a right shoulder, and then we would continue up to a target in about the 102.5 area. This has the potential to go a long way because obviously, as I've mentioned before, we've hit the major support trend line here that we've been waiting for since late 22, and we've got a very nice looking bull flag set up here, which is underthrown bullishly. So this is a bullish looking setup. We'll see. The theory is that if the tariffs get going in a big way, then that could be positive for the dollar. I'm not sure why that would be, but I'm prepared to give it a shot because this is a bullish looking setup by strong preference, 70% to 30. Wouldn't be astonished if it went the other way, though. All right. We obviously have mirroring setups, basically. That is the corresponding bear flag on Euro. We've got a corresponding bear flag on GBP. We will see. But this is leaning bullish on the pattern setup, 70% for the dollar. If we break down, well, let's just say, I think we're heading to one of two places here. If we break down, I think we'll head to 80. And if we break up, then we'll go back and retest the high at 114.78. I think we're going to see one or the other. I don't think there's not really a serious third option here. I think we're very likely to do one or the other. So we will see how far we can get on the bull side. And if it fails hard, then, well, 80 it is, because that would be the target for the flag on the breakdown. All right, not a lot else to see on the other currencies. The yen is on the bigger picture, just tracking sideways here, possibly forming a head and shoulders, but not a particularly pretty one. So to take us down here, that of course would lean bearish on the dollar. Not seeing an awful lot on CAD, apart from this very large potential level top, which of course would also be bearish for the dollar. But not seeing a huge indication that we're about to go down on it. And short term, we've actually got an RSI 5 buy signal, which is fixed here. There are some indications that the dollar has support on the way up. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at ZB. ZB, nice looking head and shoulders here, and it's broken down with a target at a retest of this low, which I've got in about the 109.18 area. I'm liking the downside on this. This was the little Powell. If it got up to here for the back test, then we have the Powell bump down. But I think my lean is it's going to head down further. On then we've got a head and shoulders, which is also broken down here. Now it could fail on a break back up over basically the monthly pivot, but I'm liking the downside on this too. It looks like the obvious way to go on the TNX chart, and I don't think Trump is trying hard to win any friends in the bond market, so I'm not really seeing much reason that we wouldn't do that. All right, looking at the TNX chart, we've got an IHS which is broken up, and matching the one. Well, I mean, obviously we've got ZBE, we've got Zian, we've got TLT where we've got a head and shoulders which is broken down. The TNX one we've got a head and shoulders which is broken up. These are all matching head and shoulder patterns, all looking in the same direction. And really, I'm not seeing much reason to think at the moment they're going to fail. One thing that is interesting that I've been looking at is that I've been talking about the Treasury buying bonds to defend the 5% level. And that's not the 5% level on TNX, that's the 5% level on TYX. TYX is the 30-year yield, and it's the 30-year yield which really is the basis for mortgage rates and longer term loans and so on. And this reached this 51.52 here, then reached 51.53 here, setting up a very large and beautiful double top, which I really don't think is going to play out. But we're coming back up into a retest of that. This is the level at which they were saying the Treasury would be buying large amounts of bonds to defend it. So watching that with interest to see how that does. But equally, the reason they're defending it is if we have a hard break above this level here, then I'm not seeing much stopping it until we get over 6%. I.e., we could see a major slide down in bonds, and I think it's currently looking very likely to me we're going to see that at some stage in the next few months, but it doesn't need to be now. But I think the big beautiful bill passing the increased debt that's going to bring in were not good for bonds. I think when growth rates disappoint, and therefore the debt, both the deficit and the debt, become bigger picture as part of GDP, I don't think that's going to help either. I think there's going to be a death of 1,000 cuts, which takes us probably above 6% and maybe considerably higher. We shall see. All right. Looking at the oil chart. Okay, oil. I'm leaning towards the downside here. We've certainly got a bear flag sort of ish set up here, and I'm really looking for a target here between 63 and 64. The test of this trend line here would be included in that, and the retest of this low. Looking at HO, we had a nice looking rising wedge here. It's breaking down. No clear topping pattern yet, but we could be forming a head and shoulders. On RBOB, we don't need a topping pattern. We've already got a double top, and it's already started breaking down. This is looking at taking us down into basically the retest of this low. I'm overall, this has got a bearish cast to it. And I think if equities are going to start to struggle, economy is going to visibly struggle more, then that would be the obvious lead. NG, we can see a larger rally here. We've seen a nice rally here. We had a beautiful falling wedge. It broke up, and we've gone up to my first inverted head shoulder neckline. The second one, obviously, is. Sorry, I'll just add this to the chart because it should be on there already. There are two obvious IHS necklines on the chart. This is the one that is already shown, and the second one is here. So I'm really looking for, if we're going to see more upside here, I'd be looking for an IHS to form one of these two necklines. This would be the third one because this is edging on to being a little too high. I would like to see it here. Do we have much indication of that happening? Not an awful lot at the moment, but it's a level I'm watching. We will see. Obviously, if we're not forming an IHS, then this doesn't need to be significant. We could see, if we are going to go higher, we could, of course, see a retest of the low first. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on that. Now, WTIC, still got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. We went up to this trend line here, broke over it slightly, keeping an open mind, but you will see on oil here, we have tested the daily middle band as resistance over and over again and not broken above it. Looking at heating oil, we were holding the daily middle band like a champ, but we've now just broken below it. On gas oil, we were holding the daily middle band reasonably well, and we're holding it less well now with a clear close below it today. This could be the breakdown that takes us back into the lows, in which case on oil here, on WTIC, which is like crude, I'd be looking for this move back into the 56 area. We will see how that goes. But I think that would be a good thing. Certainly be a very good thing for Ukraine, as that would actually mean that Russia was almost selling its oil at break even, which would be excellent news for Ukraine. As it might be, the Russian economy is in so much trouble now, it really looks as though a couple of minor pushes might push it over the edge. That would make a lot of Europeans very happy, because really we're kind of working on the assumption that if things don't change, then we'll probably be at war with Russia within a few years. And that, for us, is going to be one of the biggest legacies of this administration. All right, on NG, we've got a rising wedge here, breaking down a bit, but maybe. So watching this with interest, not really a particularly good match from what we're seeing on the hourly chart, but then the monthly rolls here do have an outsized impact, because some of the monthly rolls on NG are frankly ridiculous. It's we've got on here, this looks like a little level bottom, but I'd be inclined to go with what we're seeing on this chart, which is a possible higher chest falling. All right, let's have a look at precious metals, where GC had a spike up today on that Powell floating of the idea of sacking Powell. That didn't go well, so that was reversed pretty quickly. Hang on, sorry, I'm just testing something on the trend lines here. I think I might have just seen something I haven't seen before. Yes, there it is. Well, that is interesting. All right, what I saw was the trend line I should have been using on gold. That's actually a very nice rising wedge. That's got a bearish lean. This is leaning towards this breaking down. We haven't seen a break up again above that in the 3400 area. I have been wondering whether we might be heading lower here. I was talking about it on the pre-market video this morning. I was talking about the fact that SI went up to my 39 target, and I was looking at the silver chart there, and actually it's looking well. We just hit the obvious resistance area I've had marked in for months. And that's kind of the area where we might well see a pullback. Gold, I wish I was thinking would retest the all-time high while we were doing that. Didn't retest the all-time high, and I have options where we could see a retracement across the precious metals here as an option. And we'll see. I'm not sure we'd see those on palladium and platinum. These are really after basically a year or two in action, have really broken up and done some damage to the upside. But really, they're just getting started. I'm not sure that would apply to them, but I think silver and gold, if silver reverses hard here, gold will probably do the same. And this rising wedge, is supporting that. All right, looking at copper. Copper, obviously a 50% tariff has been announced on copper, and that is still in progress. So that's due to come in on the 1st of August. Trump has not really delayed significantly any of his metals tariffs so far. Chances are this one will be solid. So what we're looking at here with this rise on the tariffs is going to be an awful lot of stockpiling before the tariffs kick in. This will have a big impact on everyone who uses copper in America, and copper is used for a lot of things. All right, let's have a look at the metals on the bigger picture charts and on gold. Gold, we've still got an old RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and I'm wondering if that might make target. We're struggling at the daily middle band, and I did draw in a few weeks ago this possible alternate bull flag. This was a nice bull flag. We broke up from it, but sometimes they evolve into larger bull flags or possibly a triangle. I drew in a possible trend line here down in the 30-40 area, 30-40, 30-50 as an option. Equally, if it was a triangle, well, triangle would be slightly harder to put a trend line on unless I could use that as a low. I wouldn't have really enough data for it, but I am thinking we might see some more retracement before we go up and retest the high, which is something I'm expecting to see within months, but not necessarily within weeks. All right, looking at silver. This is the line I had drawn in on the monthly chart, and this is actually the main resistance trend line from the 2008 low. This is a very, very nice trend line. Look, we got very close to it. Very close. Looking at the shorter term weekly chart, this is a different, nope, it's the same resistance trend line. Why is that one slightly more exact? It's shorter term. This is what I had on the chart from the 2023, and of course we've gone up and we've hit that too. This is a series of trend lines I've had on here for months, which have all just been hit, and this is why I was talking about the 39 area for silver. We could be looking at a reversal here. Do I have much sign of that happening? Well, we've already got an RSI 5 sell signal fix and an RSI 14 sell signal fix on silver. Nothing on the weekly chart yet. If we kick around here for a while, though, we could set up a weekly sell signal as well. I'm thinking we could well see a retracement here. This is the obvious resistance level. And the gold setup here is not unfavorable to hanging down here for a bit. All right, looking at palladium. Palladium breaking up here. Is this a double bottom or is it a bear flag? Because that makes a real difference. I'm still thinking this might be a bear flag for me. In terms of the daily chart, no current negative divergence, although it would be easy to fix that with a retest this high here at 1321, which would get both RSI 14 and RSI 5 possible sell signals spraying. Looking at platinum, we've seen a hell of a run here, but you can see we're reaching a possible trend line. And actually, I drew this in last weekend, and since then we've gone this little bit higher. We're hitting it now. I am wondering whether that would be resistance. But I was looking at this closely last week and drew that in towards the end of the week, and that is us hitting that trend line. That could break, but equally it could hold. On the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fix. We've still got an RSI 5 sell signal fix, although we've gone up a long way since that actually fixed. I am wondering about some retracement here. Looking at copper. Copper made new highs, and I'm wondering about a possible level top here, but this is the first high and this is the second high. I don't think the, well, again, over the next few months, I'm not expecting copper to do well. In the short term, I think prices have been forced up by the tariffs coming in, but I think tariffs come when the tariffs are in. This is likely to depress copper demand quite a bit in the US. That will have a significant impact, although not a huge impact on the world price, but a significant impact. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at the GDX charts. Kind of looks like a bull flag forming, kind of looks like a bull flag forming, but might not need to be. What these don't look like at the moment is topping patterns. So we'll see. All right, great. Let's have a look at the other commodities. KC kind of looks like a bear flag forming, but I don't have any decent trend lines for it. Or at least I didn't. Do I now? Nope. So kind of bear flag like action here. I am wondering about a possible IHS forming, but I'm not seeing one yet. SB, this is a nice looking little nested double top. Setting up a retracement, basically a slightly over 50% retracement, maybe back into here in about the 1575 to 1585 area. I'm quite liking that, and it's obviously at resistance at the monthly pivot. We've seen tests there. Slight break up here, which is being rejected. I'm liking the downside here. That would be the way this would normally develop after this kind of action at the monthly pivot. And that is the key short-term resistance here. All right, looking at CC, I was saying that that could be a double bottom, but I was kind of leaning towards it going down further. I've got a decent looking trend line here, which I'm wondering about, and it's down here in about the 74.50 area, and I'm thinking that might be the next target. We've also got a 60-minute buy signal fixed, and if we didn't already have one, another one would be brewing here. Looking at cotton. The head and shoulders broke down and failed. Normally that would deliver a retest of this high here in the 69.5 area. On lumber, nice looking double top has broken down with a target in the 632 to 635 area. On wheat, Retesting this low, still wondering about it going lower. I'm wondering about wheat, corn, and soy all going lower, actually. Corn, we're seeing a bit of a rally here, but not a great deal. I'm thinking that we may have further down targets on the downside for all of these. We've got a little double bottom breaking up on soy. I haven't marked in the arrows for it, but the target would basically be in about the 102.9 to 103.2 area. Could see that deliver on soybean oil. Still leaning towards seeing a retest of this high, and we've been working on it for a while. But I think this was a flag, and it broke up, and that's the next target there. Don't really have a clear view after that. Live cattle is continuing higher now. We did have a possible double top forming here, but it's continuing higher. We've got a 6-minute sell signal fixed, hasn't delivered anything so far. And on lean hogs, we've got a very nice looking falling megaphone here, which could be a bull flag. And that bull flag will set up a retest this high here in the 113.25 area. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And coffee. Coffee, we don't have any positive divergence on the weekly chart. We did see a nice little move up here, so we will see, but I think this was just this might just be a changeover artifact. But we do have a very nice looking falling megaphone here. I'm thinking this might have a shot. We're breaking back over the daily middle band at the moment. If it can sustain that break, then I'm thinking this might be able to go significantly higher. We shall see. All right, looking at sugar, I'm still a little wary about this huge pattern with the target down in the 6.529 area. But in the short term, I've got a falling wedge here. Maybe that could well be an alternate for here. And if we can make our way back up to the wedge resistance in the 19.6 area and break above it, then it could be that what we've actually got here is a bull flag breaking up. Looking at the sugar chart, we've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fix and the weak RSI 5 buy signal as we've now reached the possible near miss target. We have a long way to go to my trend line, and I'll be interested to see if it can make it. On CC, is this a double top? Nope, it's too big. It would take us almost back to zero. So having said that, the minimum target for it would actually be within this long range we've been at, and we broke out of that in a very big way, and we've retraced some of that, but I'd be expecting to retrace more. So I'm thinking this double top may break down, and it could make much of the way, and it could get back to the longer term range that we were in for the last decade before this strong move up. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. Looking at wheat on the bigger picture, I am wondering seriously about a retest this low here at 495.50, and that's where I'm thinking we may be heading next. On corn, I'm wondering about a full retest of this low here at 385. On soy, I'm wondering about a retest of this low here at 936.06. All of the pattern setups here quite like that retest. And I am thinking we might see that retest together. Looking at cotton, we're almost at the main wedge resistance here. If we can break over that, then that puts us in the bottoming pattern. We've already got a very nice looking potential double bottom. So I'm liking the downside here, the upside here, if we can break up over this resistance trend line. We haven't quite made it yet. Looking at lumber, lumber has just rolled, and I haven't rolled my hourly chart on it. So this is actually, it wasn't quite ready on volume last weekend. It's clearly made it in the last day. I'm going to have a think about this. But in terms of the current chart, nothing happened. And in terms of the chart that I will be looking at next, which will be the lumber December chart, maybe, we will see. But I think on that one, this will still look like a double top, which is breaking down. So I'm inclined to take this chart over the other. So I'm still thinking that's likely to be the case. Having said that, this is finding support at the monthly pivot so far. It could reject back up to the highs in any case, but I'm leaning towards the downside here. All right, and I think that's a wrap. All right, everyone take care. I'll catch you again on Sunday.